Let's dive into our second episode, where another major CEO steps out of the boardroom and into the real world, this time at the world's largest double drive-thru chain, Checkers and Rallies. Headquartered in Tampa, Florida, Checkers and Rallies has built a reputation for bold flavors, fast service, and an unmistakable drive-thru layout that fans know instantly. With restaurants operating across 30 states and pulling in $680 million every year, this company is far bigger than most people realize. And at the very top of this massive operation sits the president and CEO, Rick Silva. Rick has a serious job, overseeing more than 20,000 employees, each one working in a fast-paced environment that leaves absolutely no room for mistakes. But despite being the boss, Rick knows that you can't truly understand a company from behind a desk. Numbers, reports, and meetings only tell half the story. To really understand what's happening, the challenges, the workplace culture, the things employees deal with every single day, you have to go see it for yourself. And that's exactly what he intends to do. But before we follow Rick undercover, let's rewind a bit. A look back at the brand. Checkers and Rallies weren't always one big chain. They actually started as two separate companies. Similar style, similar menu, similar mission, operating in different regions. In 1999, they decided to merge. It wasn't a hostile takeover or a desperate last-minute deal. It was a natural partnership. Both brands were strong, and they believed joining forces would help them stay competitive and keep their identity intact. And it worked. The chain grew bigger, stronger, and more recognizable than ever. As for Rick, his roots in fast food run deep. Before joining Checkers and Rallies, he spent 13 years climbing the corporate ladder at Burger King. Those years taught him everything: operations, customer service, quality control, marketing, and the reality of trying to satisfy millions of hungry people every day. He joined Checkers 5 years ago, bringing all that knowledge with him. Rick is a perfectionist, and not the annoying nitpicky kind. He's the kind of perfectionist who tests every single item with focus groups before it reaches the public. He's obsessed with getting things right, making sure customers love the food and crafting products that will succeed. So far, that approach has helped him tremendously. But lately, something has been bothering him. Even though the company is doing well on paper, Rick wants to know whether things are running smoothly behind the scenes. He wants to see how employees are treated, whether managers follow company standards, and what problems his hourly workers deal with on a daily basis. And there's only one way to find out: the undercover plan. To get honest insight without the filter of "the CEO is watching," Rick decides to go undercover. His disguise? A man named Alex, a fictional former pharmacy owner from Philadelphia who supposedly lost his business and is trying to start over. Employees are told he's filming a reality competition show that might award him his own restaurant if he performs well. It's the perfect cover story: humble, believable, and just odd enough to avoid suspicion. With his new identity locked in, Rick heads out for his first undercover mission: Homestead, Florida Grill and Fry Station. Rick's first stop is Homestead, Florida, where he'll be working the grill and fry section. This area is the heart of the restaurant. Fast, hot, and intense. Burgers need to be perfect, fries need to be crisp, and everything has to move quickly to keep the drive-thru line short. He's introduced to Todd, an employee who's been working hard despite the pressure. Todd becomes Rick's trainer for the day, showing him how to prepare patties, manage the grill, and keep orders flowing. Rick tries to follow every instruction, but the pace shocks him. Todd moves effortlessly, flipping, seasoning, prepping, sliding items across the grill, while Rick struggles to keep up. Watching from a distance is Stevens, the store manager. It doesn't take long before Stevens starts yelling, not at Rick, but at Todd for not working fast enough. Rick never intended to get Todd in trouble, but Todd just shrugs it off and says this is how Stevens always talks. It's normal to him. which to Rick is a huge red flag. The next day, Rick is placed on the fry station. Here, he notices something else. The restaurant isn't following the company's official guidelines. Procedures are ignored, shortcuts are taken, and safety rules go out the window. As he continues observing, he hears Stevens yelling at employees again. Only this time, the yelling isn't about speed. It's aggressive, personal, and laced with threats. At several points, Stevens even hints at physical violence if people don't listen.
I can take you outside and beat you up, right?
Later, when Rick and Todd take out the trash, Rick gently asks why Todd stays in such a toxic environment. That's when Todd opens up. He explains that he has to take care of his mother, and this job, as hard as it is all he could find. He can't afford to lose it, even if it means enduring daily humiliation. As Todd talks, he becomes emotional, eventually breaking down in tears. Rick, still undercover but unable to hide his compassion, comforts him. He tells Todd that speaking up matters, that he deserves respect, and that no employee should feel worthless at work. Rick convinces Todd to let him approach the manager. So the two return inside, and Rick pulls Stevens aside for a private conversation. When Rick asks why he treats his employees so harshly, Stevens dismisses the concern immediately. He claims this is the only way to control people and argues that Rick simply can't handle the job. The excuses pile up, each one more alarming than the last. At that moment, Rick reaches his limit. He reveals his identity. The moment Stevens realizes he's talking to the actual CEO, the transformation is instant. He shifts from aggressive to apologetic in seconds, scrambling to justify everything.
I don't know right now. I don't know.
But Rick isn't swayed. He tells Stevens clearly and firmly this is not how a restaurant should operate, and that he violated company policies, safety rules, and basic human decency. Right then and there, Rick shuts the restaurant down. He then speaks to the rest of the employees, including Todd, reveals his identity to them as well, apologizes for what they endured, and promises immediate change. He calls the director of operations and orders a new manager to be brought in by the next day. No hesitation. This is one of the most intense moments in Undercover Boss history, and it's just the beginning. Carroll City, Florida, night shift. The next day, Rick heads to Carroll City, Florida, where he'll be working the night shift. Here, he meets Joyce, the manager in charge. Within minutes, he notices the difference. Joyce is everything Stevens wasn't. She's upbeat, kind, encouraging, and clearly respected by her team. She communicates well, listens, and leads by example. Joyce teaches him how to run the drive-thru, how to greet customers, and how to manage multiple tasks without panicking. With her guidance, Rick actually performs pretty well. But at the same time, he discovers a technical problem. The drive-thru communication equipment is old, glitchy, and barely functional. Orders get scrambled, voices cut in and out, and it slows everyone down. On break, Rick asks Joyce about her ideas to improve operations. She opens up freely, explaining changes she wishes the company would make: upgraded equipment, better systems, stronger training, and overall better support for the staff. Unlike Stevens, Joyce cares deeply about her store and her employees. Rick leaves impressed, knowing she understands the business better than many executives. Alabama, Sandwich Board Station. For his final undercover assignment before the reveal, Rick travels to Alabama to work at the Sandwich Board Station. This is where the burgers are assembled, wrapped, and sent out, the last step before customers get their food. Here he meets Joanna, a hard-working employee with a calm, friendly presence. She starts showing Rick how to portion ingredients, build sandwiches correctly, and wrap them neatly. Rick tries to mimic her movements, but once again struggles. His wrapping is too slow. ingredients are uneven, and sometimes he sends out the wrong order entirely. But Joanna never gets frustrated. She patiently corrects his mistakes, explains the process again, and encourages him to keep trying. It's clear she cares about her job and takes pride in doing things well. Rick also notices that Joanna has natural leadership skills, communication, patience, empathy, the qualities managers need, but many never develop. He files that away, knowing it may matter later. The big reveal. With his undercover journey complete, Rick brings Joanna, Joyce, Howard, and others to meet him at one of the restaurants. It's time for the truth and for life-changing surprises. Joanna. Rick calls her in first. He tells her how much he admired her patience, her teaching skills, and her willingness to help him no matter how poorly he performed. Then he reveals an incentive program he's launching, one that gives employees real opportunities for growth. Joanna will be the first person in the program. He personally offers to mentor her, promotes her to trainee manager, and gives her $20,000 to help her move forward. Joanna is stunned. A new chapter of her life begins right there in that moment. Joyce. Next is Joyce. Rick tells her that he heard her concerns loud and clear. To support her store, he orders all old equipment to be replaced, including the faulty communication systems. But he doesn't stop there. Rick wants her voice to shape the company's future, so he offers her a position on the advisory board, along with $20,000. Joyce is emotional. Someone finally sees her value. Howard. Howard is next. He thanks him for speaking up during the undercover experience and for doing his best despite the chaos. Then Rick makes a huge promise. He will launch a new training program for all employees, focused on improving working conditions and leadership standards. On top of that, he tells Howard he'll pay for his college tuition and gives him $15,000 to help cover living expenses. Todd. Weeks later. In the weeks following the reveal, Todd is now working under a new manager. The environment has completely changed. He feels respected, supported, and finally hopeful about the future. Joanna's update. Joanna buys a new car and is already on her way to becoming a full manager, something she never imagined possible. Joyce's update. Joyce's restaurant receives brand new equipment, and the difference is immediate. Faster service, fewer issues, and a boost in morale. And with that, this powerful and emotional episode of Undercover Boss comes to an end, proving once again that sometimes the biggest transformations start with stepping into someone else's shoes.